All right, welcome to another episode of Comic Book Squares. We got another great one today. My name's Shane.
I'm Carrie.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Mike. Let's get this show started.
All right, well, welcome to another episode. This is going to be another review episode, and this is going to be a fun one. I actually did the written review for this for Global Comics, and so now we're doing our video review. Paul, tell us a bit about it.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Shane. So this is a comic called Good Boy, and as you might guess, looking at the cover, it's about a dog, and he's a very good boy. This is from one of those independent publishers called Source Point Press, and the reason I say he's such a good boy is because you know how they always say a dog is man's best friend? Well, in this case, he literally is. So if anyone has seen, the outstanding movie series, John Wick, well, and you wondered, boy, what would that look like from the perspective of the dog? If the dog lived and the human got killed, well, we got the book for you. So with that, I'll go ahead and throw it out to the rest of the crew and see what you guys all thought of it.
I think Shane should go first because this is.
I think you should too.
Well, okay,
and do not read your review from earlier. You got to put a spin on it.
Thank you for letting me go first because I absolutely love this book. When I wrote about it, I raved about it. I mean, it. You know, you wouldn't think. The simple concept of John Wick. Well, first of all, my family and I, we love the John Wick films. We go and see them at the theater. We just absolutely love them. And when you get into it and you're like, wait a minute, this is John Wick, but from the dog's perspective, and then it deviates from there. So it's not just, John Wick again. No, this is different. And with the dog stuff, having talking dogs, I mean, everything about it is so much fun. The artwork is really amazing. I can't rave enough about it. I could go on and on about this book, but I don't want to take up the whole show. So Carrie, you came at this new and fresh. What were your thoughts on it?
I consider myself a dog person.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an intriguing perspective to read through this and then have a conversation with my dogs about what they should do in the case of should something happen to me. If they know about our secret society underground and who to approach and who owes us favors and
so you handed them this and said, "This is your manifesto in case I ever come up missing."
Yeah, they surprisingly seemed uninterested. So I don't know that I have a good boy or girl in my fur family. No, it was treats. It was very entertaining. I loved it. I mean, after within the first, I think 2 panels, I was like, oh, this is John Wick in reverse. Like this, you make that connection very, very quickly and very easily. But there's a bit of I like the twist that they put in it though, where the hidden compartment with all of the weapons and everything is under the doghouse.
Oh my god!
You're like,
love it.
Snoopy's gone dark since the Red Baron took him out. He's really pissed.
It was very enjoyable, and I do foresee myself continuing to read further into this just to see where it goes, to see what we know from John Wick, what carries over into the series. And the illustration was appropriate. Like it wasn't overdone and it wasn't lacking. It wasn't oversimplified. It was like just enough, like what you would expect. It didn't take away from the story. You were definitely in the story. I think the only problem I had was did John Wick know that his dog was entirely badass? Because in the story, they're like, oh, these people owed us. And I was like, oh, were they partners in this whole thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is good. It was not what I was expecting at all.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it was a good find.
Yeah. I think it was just nice and light too. I mean, it's just, I found myself reading it and smiling the whole time. This is just so clever and fun. And yeah. Anyway, go ahead, Ben.
Well, I love, so I'm a sucker for action movies and even the ones that have cheesy lines. Like I've watched, I think every Liam Neeson movie out there. And
Nice.
even though some of them are
Yes.
not wonderful, they're still like, you just, you know, you just have fun with those. And this was reminding me of
Yeah.
that, like just having fun with the action. There's a line in there where he says, I used to be a good boy, but not anymore. You know, and it's like, I heard the voice like that in my head.
Yeah, all of a
but
sudden,
not anymore.
I have a very special set of skills.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd be surprised what I
my
could do
gosh.
with me dog collar.
And it was just so fun, and the self-referential humor too, where they acknowledge the anthropomorphic, you know,
Yes.
creatures and stuff. I don't know. It was action packed. It was that.
Yeah.
There was still like good action. There's still a fun story, but it knows what it is. Like, you know,
Yeah.
and so I appreciate that because it doesn't lean into it too heavily either, which is also I appreciate it because it keeps you interested in the action, and then you know that they know that you know that they know.
They know that they know that I know that you know.
Yeah, it was definitely super entertaining. To me, like you said, Ben, I found myself smiling and giggling and chuckling as I was reading certain things, and some of them you really have to like. It was one of those where you want to go back and read it because I think there's definitely things that I missed. Like as an example, in like the John Wick movies, right? The Continental is where you don't do business, and in the comic they named it the Lincoln, right? Lincoln Continental. So it's just like little things like that. It would call them an Easter egg or call them a little, play on words or whatever. But there's, I think, a lot of hidden little things like that where it's just, tongue in cheek, and it's definitely entertaining. And like you said, Ben, it's like they kind of know what they've got there. And, I don't know if it would be as entertaining not knowing the John Wick. I think it holds its own definitely, but I think knowing the John Wick stories, and like I just said with the Continental, like if you didn't know that, you just read it's the Lincoln and you maybe don't put that together. So definitely enjoyable for me because I do love the John Wick series, and the comic was entertaining and joyful. And again, it's one of those where you're like, I just want to see what happens and keep going. So definitely entertaining.
What's now the dog's name is Flint. What's his human's name? John.
Wick.
Without an H. I see, said the blind man.
Right.
As he looked into his song. Yeah, nice. So I mean, it's nonstop. This is like one of those books that is like, yes, this is a great idea, and I'm just ripping from it, and you're gonna love it. And it just cracked me up because when you thought it couldn't get more absurd, like when he stops into the gas station, right? And the assassins start coming after him, and they're all dogs, and and it's just like,
and then the cops like,
right?
So you're saying these two dogs, these two
and the girl's like,
dogs,
yeah. And the girl's like, that's how it is in this story. Durr.
Hello.
Don't you remember in our universe, we totally do this all the time.
Right?
Yes, that's a thing.
It's like, hey, cop, look up and around. Don't you see the comic panel?
Yeah, like fourth wall break within a comic.
Right. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Now I will say, for anybody who takes a look at this and digs it like we did, I mean, there's, I think 10 or 12 issues all on Global Comics.
Oh, wow.
If you want the print copies, I know there's still some at local comic shops, but you could read the whole thing. I think it's in the second, maybe third volume, and the way they do it is in basic arcs. They don't do it like Marvel and DC when they kind of reboot number one, but they finish a story arc, that's volume one, then they start again with number one, volume two, new story arc, and I think Shane, at some point, that's probably where you came in. I know you looked at it. I don't remember. How far you were able to read into it, but every few issues is basically a new arc and a new volume. So don't be fooled if you see volume 3. I think it's only, again, maybe 10 issues in, something like that. But, it's a continuation. So, again, real fun stuff to read.
Yeah, when I did the review, it was a few months ago that I did the written review. And, I know sometimes you'll talk about how you read it and then you went on to read the other 3 or 4 books afterward, and I'll be honest, for me that rarely happens. For this book it did. When I did the written review, I ended up reading 4 more issues that were available. Because I just absolutely love the kind of tongue-in-cheek what they were doing with it. And yeah, it's just such a fun, sometimes you need that, I think, is, sometimes you can get into serious stuff, and it gets a little heavy, and you just need something light and fun that makes you smile and laugh. And I enjoy the hell out of this.
And dogs
like
take back the world.
Liam Neeson movie.
Yeah, like
yeah,
Liam
exactly.
Neeson.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Sometimes you need to turn your brain off and just say, yeah, let's just have some fun here. And this is it. I can't rave about it enough. I really enjoyed it. And to your point, Carrie, the artwork is, it's just enough. It's clean and tells the story without being, distracting stuff. I've got the panels up here, and it is just, yeah, it's just so well done.
Mm-hmm.
I just love everything about it. And, one thing we mentioned quite a bit on this show is about the lettering. And, even in this, they do some really fun stuff with the lettering. Just that, a lot, mostly with the like action stuff. Whenever something happens to one of the other characters, or just the way that they break up, whether somebody's on the phone, or some of the other villains, they've got different ways that they'll have the outline of the balloons and things like that. So I could just go on and on about this book, but I love it to death.
Yeah. No, I want to talk about that artwork too. Cause when you said that, Carrie, about it being just enough, I was like, that's exactly that's the good point. Cause they didn't try to go too realism, too into realism, which might have taken you out of it, or I don't know, this looked too gritty, because the way the story's written, that wouldn't have fit if they went like straight realism with it. And then they didn't go too cartoony either. And it's like, which is good, because again, now that would have taken you more out of it and made it too silly. And this is just like, right. Like the artwork is gritty and there's some gore, well, just like any good action film, there's some blood and stuff. But it's not, again, nothing's too over the top in either direction. So I really appreciated that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I hope people, if the artist actually stumbles across this episode and watches it, when we're saying just right, I don't want them to feel like that's a negative in any way. This is like, it's exactly what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be exactly the way that you did it, is the way it needed to be.
Yeah, like Goldilocks, like you found the perfect one.
Yes.
Like Goldilocks artwork. It was perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what we're saying is the artwork is like warm oatmeal. It's comfort food.
It's perfect.
It's comfort food.
Yeah. Well, I think, and to that artist's point, that to your point, Ben, that had to be a little tricky to find that perfect balance of, not being, this, you're talking about, I always mess up that word. What's the word you said for talking animals? Anthropomorphic. That's the one. It could easily go into, more cartoony. Or if you wanted to stay in the John Wick style, you could have went way rougher and more realistic. But it's you found to find that perfect as it's brilliant. Love it.
So one thing I'd like to circle back on this. I don't know if we've discussed this before, but there was a book that came out a few years ago, 4 issues, and then the creator came out with another 4 issues. A guy named David Papos. He's working for Marvel now, or I should say doing work for Marvel. But he had a book called Spencer and Locke. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that.
Yeah.
If you're not, take a look at that. It's basically what would happen if Calvin and Hobbes grew up and Calvin became a cop and had some serious mental issues.
Oh no!
Right? And if Locke wasn't necessarily, they're not the most stable, right? We're talking about these creatures that come to life. You're talking about a stuffed tiger that came to life. In this case, it's a panther, but the panther wears a Columbo jacket and a fedora, and goes on his detective investigations with him. So it's the same kind of artwork where you look at it and you go, you could have gone really, really dark with this, but they stayed somewhat cartoony. And then when they go to the really horrifying portions of, say, the cop's memory or of some other things going on, it almost looks very Calvin and Hobbes-ish, right? And that's really, it's intentional and it's fantastic. It's called Spencer and Locke. So, hey, viewers, listeners, you get yourself a double review, sort of, or I should say a double recommendation. Spencer and Locke is pretty fantastic. And like I said, Dave Papos, he I think his first move into Marvel was he was doing Savage Avengers for a little bit, and he's doing some other things now. But Spencer and Locke stuff is a good find. But I look at this story, this Good Boy, as just sort of another chapter in that type of genre where the animals actually have a more interesting story than the humans sometimes.
Yeah.
You were going to say something, Ben?
Oh, I was just thinking about so we're talking about the action movies and especially it's not comparison. It's the other version, the other side of like a twist on John Wick. And I was, when the whole time I was reading it, at first I knew it was John Wick. So I was reading the dog. I don't know if you guys do this. You do like the voices in your head. You hear the like your voices you're reading. And I was at first trying to hear it as Keanu because I'm like, okay, this is John Wick, right? But I couldn't because he talks so much more than John Wick does.
Right.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
So then I don't know if this is like the third time I've said this guy's name. So then I started reading it in Liam Neeson's voice because he does talk a lot in his action movies. And so, yeah, I've just heard so if they ever make an animated series off of this, Liam Neeson, you got
yes.
Liam Neeson.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. 100. I would agree. Yes. Rubber stamp. That's approved.
Yeah. In the flashbacks, you can have Keanu do the voice of his.
Yes. Yeah.
I could totally see this being like a Netflix thing. I mean,
absolutely. Yes.
Well, and once again, we kind of talked about this, previously with other reviews. Is for years and years and years they've been adapting novels. When you go to adapt comics, you're really looking for maybe something unique or something that hasn't been done before. And I think independent comics really are providing really a wealth of material. We'll see if anybody picks it up as an option, but it would be pretty awesome. I mean, whether they do it cartoony or however they decide to do it, I mean, I think it would be really interesting and fun to watch.
No, they got to do this exact artwork.
Yeah.
And that's
Exactly.
I mean, and it would be simple to do, right? I mean, it's just, and you'd be able to get it out there pretty quick. And I think, but I think you guys are right. I think the voice talent would be what makes or breaks it for sure.
Yeah.
Well, this was, I absolutely love this book so much. So please go out, seek it out. Global Comics, another supporter of the show. They have it on their platform. So please check it out there. You can also find it on the stands at your local comic shop. So thanks again, Paul. I appreciate it. This was fantastic. Well, thanks for tuning in. This was another great episode. And please hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell so we can keep bringing you content like this. And we'll see you on the next one.
Take care.
Bye.